In this episode of the Sam Oldham podcast, I'm joined by Megan Kealy, the 2021 World Tumbling Champion. Megan, throughout her career, has won a total of 15 World Championship medals and 6 European medals. Most recently, in 2025, she became the World Games champion. And at the 2025 World Tumbling Championships, she won a silver and a bronze medal. I'm really excited to have her here today. Megan, thank you so much for joining us. I am going to preface this conversation with you've just had an injury to your ankles and you're actually having surgery tomorrow. So that is, incredible commitment. Thank you so much for giving us your time. It's very generous of you, Megan. I guess the best place to start is probably with those ankle injuries to bring people up to speed. Can you just explain a bit, Megan, about what happened, the extent of the injury, and I guess the surgery you're going to have tomorrow?
I was just warming up for our annual Christmas gala. So just a general warm up, and I had my first go. It was just a whip run. It's what we start with every session. I do it every day. Have done it for quite a long time in my career, and just both my feet rolled in the middle twice, and I ended up fracturing and dislocating the left with some ligament damage, and then there's a little bit of ligament damage on the right one as well. So I'm having surgery on the left tomorrow to repair that one a bit more, as it's a little bit worse off than the right. But I've started rehab on the right one as well. So hopefully in the new year, might be a long recovery, but it was just one of those things.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I'm sure every gymnast that's listening to this knows that Christmas display time of the year. And again, we were just chatting before we went live, Megan. It's always those simple things, right? Did your ankles go out? Did you roll them both out, Megan, or was it inwards?
Yeah, both outwards. Okay. So it went once, and then I somersaulted again, and then it went again, and then Wow. It wasn't my best one, but I just couldn't stop. In a whip run, you're quite going through motion, and I just couldn't stop. So it didn't turn out too great for me, but it will heal.
And is it something that you've done before? Do you have a tendency of rolling those ankles, Megan? Is it something you've had issues with in the past, or?
Not for a long time. I haven't done it for a long time. I actually tape my feet to stop doing that because sometimes it just happens. And then, it was one of those things.
Is it pretty common within tumblers to do that? I mean, you just spoke of doing that whip run. I remember being a lot younger and being at Lilleshall, and I used to get very excited when the tumblers came to do a training camp, because tumbling was like my favourite thing to do in gymnastics. So I used to watch you guys in awe, particularly on fast track, doing the wildest gymnastics. And when you guys are doing those whip runs, you're going so fast. There's no way you could slow yourself down. So I completely understand what you were explaining there about doing the second somersault almost into rolled ankles again. Is it a typical injury for tumblers to roll their ankles like that?
I would say we have quite strong feet. So I think it was just like a freak accident. I suppose gymnasts always do it doing simple things, because your concentration just isn't there quite the same as when you're doing a hard skill. So I guess because it was something I do every day, it was just one of those things, and it was just a freak accident.
The surgery that you're having tomorrow, Megan, has it been explained to you what they're doing, what they're trying to fix in your left ankle?
They are going to repair the ligaments on the outside, and they will look also the inside where one of the fractures is. The ligaments have ruptured from that side as well. So they're just going to have a look and see if it's worth reconnecting, or whether I'd lose that range and they need to heal on their own. Okay,
and then is there, how much damage and what's the extent of the ligament damage? Are they all partial ruptures? Are there any full ruptures there, Megan?
They're full ruptures on the outside, and there's one full rupture on the inside with a partial on the inside as well. So...
Well, you're talking to the right person, Megan, because I completely ruptured every ligament in my left ankle and had surgery on it. So, on the other side of that surgery, if you need any advice on how to get an ankle back ready for not quite the tumbling that you guys do, but at least to be back there and to help you with some of the shortcuts, because it was quite a complicated one. But I did get back to full gymnastics. I tried to get back far too quickly. I think my advice would be lengthen your recovery time a little bit more than you want to, because you'll be keen to get back as fast as possible. But hopefully it all goes well. I'm sure it will, and they'll fix it up and you'll be back in no time doing your thing. Just take me a little bit let's go back to the start, Megan. I think the origin story of tumblers and trampolinists is always interesting. I think there's probably a mixed bag. Some people that find the sport straight away, and then others that start in artistic and then end up going into tumbling or trampolining. How did you get started in the sport of tumbling?
I was in artistic first.
Okay.
Because my brother did artistic. So I was kind of just like second child, put in the gym. And it was actually a tumbling coach that spotted me out of the artistic group. I wasn't the most naturally flexible, but I had like kind of the right body shape for it, like muscly legs from a very long, like young child. So they spotted me out when I was 7, and yeah, I just carried on ever since.
And the gym that you started in, Megan, was it predominantly an artistic gym? Was it a mixture of the both, or was it more of a tumbling, trampolining gym?
When I did artistic, I was at Basingstoke.
Okay.
So they have quite a few disciplines there. So I think tumbling was first starting out there. The coach had moved from another gym to start up the tumbling program. So I guess I just was the right fit for it.
And what were you like as a kid, Megan? We often hear of a lot of kids that get into gymnastics being very hyperactive. I would imagine that if you're going to go into a sport like tumbling or trampolining, you're probably even more hyperactive and climbing off walls. What were you like as a kid? And what do you think lent yourself towards a sport like gymnastics?
I guess I had a lot of energy, but my parents always wanted to put us into sports. My dad wanted us to do gymnastics in particular because he always wanted to do that growing up and never had the opportunity. But I did lots of other sports, like I played football and I did Irish dancing, and then in the end, I fell in love with gymnastics, and that's what I chose to do. And
did your brother stay in gymnastics for a long time after you started tumbling, or did he finish pretty early and then you just kind of carried that on?
He stopped in middle of secondary school.
Okay.
Just was one of those things. I think you either want to carry on or you want to have that social life, and there's sacrifices, and I think that's the avenue he went down. He walked away from it, but yeah, it was a little bit different for me, I suppose. What
was the culture like in the sport of tumbling when you first started, Megan, and you start growing up and you spend those first few years doing it? Because I always looked at like the tumblers and the trampolinists and felt like you guys are having a lot more fun than we are over here in artistic. What was that like? What was it like being around and training in that environment when you were younger?
Yeah, it was always fun. It's always been fun, and I think like that's why I do it, because I love it. It was always pressure, but pressure from myself more so. And I looked up to Lucy Colbeck for my whole career. And I remember watching her from a very young age and just wanting to like live up to like what she had done, and yeah, just have fun, I guess.
And was Lucy training in the same gym as you, or were you watching her on TV and being inspired by her?
No, I remember watching her at my first British Championships, or second British Championships. I think once I was about 10, started to like realise like the sport and stuff. You start have an idea of what's going on, and I remember watching her and just thinking like, wow, she's amazing. And it was just from there, really, I suppose. I just saw her and I was like, oh, I just want to be like that. And yeah, just kept working hard.
Was there an element of tumbling and the sport specifics that you had a real strength in from the beginning, Megan? I know that typically most tumbling is backwards, right? But was there anything that from the beginning you had a bit of a natural knack for, and you just seemed to be able to pick up a little bit quicker than maybe the people that you trained with?
I don't know why they ever picked me for tumbling, because when I was in artistic, I could do a flick on my head on the floor at like 7. Like I wasn't the best when I was younger, but I always worked really hard, I suppose. I would say it was more my body shape, and the potential was there of that kind of thing, especially that's what people would look at back then. I don't know if it's the same now, but yeah, I wouldn't say I was the best, but as soon as I had a growth spurt, things started to like click a bit better for me.
And were you quite a brave kid, Megan? Because like one thing that's very scary for gymnasts to do in the beginning, right, is to go backwards and lose sight of the floor. Like learning a flick or a back somersault is pretty frightening. And I work with like real young kids, and even starting from 4 or 5, doing a backward roll can be really scary for the first time. Was that an area where you were able to maybe stand out from other people, or was that actually quite difficult for you in the beginning?
Not in the beginning. I didn't really have any fear. I think it was like learning my first double back. I think that's what I was most scared of. I think that was one of the skills that became the most scariest for me. I was 10, I think. And I remember having to do a certain number of sessions, and I would just like cry about it. But it wasn't that I couldn't do it. I just didn't like doing it. But yeah, I think that was like the first big challenge. Like before that, I had not a lot of fear. I wasn't afraid to try new things. So yeah, just a double tag.
What do you think it was, Megan, that made you go back to the gym and continue with that? Because that can be a real sticking point for a lot of kids, right? And you will have seen this now as an older athlete. There are a lot of kids that decide in that moment, when they face that first psychological barrier, that this isn't for me, I don't want to do this. What was it maybe within you that you feel like got you over that hurdle mentally?
I don't know. I did want to do it. I was just scared. I think it was one of those. Like, I like to see that I had ticked them off on the board. Like, it was a challenge. I think it was just more scary because it's that little bit harder. It doesn't come so naturally. And the mats back in the day weren't very soft when you did that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think it was just more fear of the mat more than the actual skill. But, yeah, it got easier.
How do you train your spatial awareness as a tumbler, Megan? Like from a young age, are you just mainly predominantly spending your time on track? You know, when you were a young gymnast, did you have a track to a pit? Do you spend a lot of time on trampoline? Like, how are you training that skill? For artistic, you can always tell for me who has a trampoline in the gym and who doesn't. And the kids that are like so frightened to go on a trampoline typically struggle doing dismounts or big tumbles or whatever it might be in artistic. But the kids that grew up effectively playing on the trampoline and learning how to train bravery are the ones that have a real advantage when it comes to their spatial awareness. Is there kind of a system within tumbling for training that spatial awareness, and what does that look like?
I think it's better trained now. I think different gyms have obviously different ways of teaching. But at the gym I was at the time, a lot of my skills were just learnt off the fast track into the pit. I think a lot of gyms now do a lot of like technique-based, trampoline-based work, which I didn't really do till a bit later on, till I moved gyms. So, yeah, I guess I was just able to do, and I never had that challenge. And when I couldn't do something, so there was a back and pull, I couldn't do that growing up. So we just didn't ever do it. Like, that was it. We just didn't ever do it. And yeah, everything else came quite naturally to me. I was quite lucky. But yeah, it was just learning on a fast track, really.
And did you have early success, Megan? Did you start having some success in the sport as you were a young teenager, maybe going into secondary school? Was it something that you could quite clearly see the evidence that you were winning medals nationally from a young age?
Yeah, I think definitely throughout my career, I've had a very successful career, and I won my first world age group competition when I was 13, and I won 3 back-to-back. I think there's only like one other person that's had that success who's a boy in Great Britain. So I did have quite a lot of success going through, and it was through the categories. I won each category, and I was just taking it as I come. I never thought about winning. It was always about just trying to improve for next year, and yeah. It was quite a good junior career for me, I suppose.
And what did the structure of your life look like around that time, Megan, when you're winning those back-to-back world age group titles? What are the hours involved with tumbling? Are you training 5 days a week, 6 days a week, less than that? What does it look like? What's the career of a young tumbler look like in terms of the volume of the training and then managing everything else in your life?
I did 5 days a week.
Okay.
Training. So I always had a Thursday and a Sunday off. I still now have the same pattern structure. But I did a little bit longer hours in the gym when I was younger. I did like 3.5 to 4 hours in the gym. It's not too intense. I suppose we only have one piece that we're on, and it's just breaking that session up into fast track trampoline. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. I went to school as normal, and I would go straight from school to the gym and then get home maybe 9:30, and just repeat the next day.
Yeah, when you say it like that, because, you know, typically an artistic gymnast might train for like 5 or 6 hours, maybe, like max, but they're spreading their time between, if they're a girl, 4 apparatus, if they're a boy, 6 apparatus, and you've just got that 3.5, 4 hours is a long time, right? Like, that's a lot of work, but I guess what happens is you really master the art of tumbling when you do that, and you dedicate that much time to it, and you're working on those real fine details. What were some of the key fundamentals that you learned from an early age? Because, you know, I'm forever seeing gymnasts, when they get artistic gymnasts, this is when they get to the age 16, 17, 18, there are so many learnt behaviors that you're trying to unwind and work backwards from. What are some of the key fundamentals in tumbling, Megan, that you look for if you're looking at a young athlete and maybe in your own tumbling that make a big difference, whether that's the technique of the round off, the flick, the whip, and understanding that from quite a young age?
I think especially in tumbling, technique can be adjusted. I guess it's just like, do they have that natural like spring and the ability to rebound? I think that's what a lot of coaches look for. With a decent amount of flexibility, I suppose you want the flexibility kind of there for injury purposes as well. So yeah, I guess that's what they look for. I'm not too sure.
And did they start, Megan, is, you know, you've mentioned that a couple of times. Is it very much about the right type of athlete? And what I mean by that is that, you know, I listened to somebody a few years ago say that he basically posed the question, do swimmers look like swimmers because they swim, or are they attracted to swimming because they're built like swimmers? And I guess when I think about like artistic gymnasts, it typically is the kid that can't sit still ever, which I imagine is the same in tumbling, but it sounds like they're looking for a specific build, or at least that fast twitch muscle fibers. And you get a few of those in artistic as well, right? Jake Jarman sticks out like straight away, like incredibly fast twitched, is able to do incredible tumbles, and that was really evident from a very young age. Is it those kids maybe within artistic, and maybe that coach that spotted you for the first time is seeing that ability to produce power and force at speed? Is that what is the big key ingredient when it comes to the physical makeup of a tumbler?
I think now you get such variety.
Okay.
I think maybe in the past that was the case, that's what they looked for, but you now get so much variety. Like if you would look at someone like a Christoph Willerton in tumbling, he's very tall and he has those long lines and stuff like that. He's still very fast, and you get different types. I guess a lot of coaches would have picked out of artistic, and it's the kids who maybe aren't quite as good on bars and beam, but they do have floor and vault, and they're very strong on those pieces. And it's just that they might not make it through that artistic system, but they might be better suited in something like tumbling. I suppose things can change, especially as you like grow up and you grow. People sometimes click into stuff, and we've seen kids come out of nowhere, starting the sport at 14. I think tumbling, you don't have to be young to start. Anybody can do it, but it's just, have you got that little bit of something that you're going to click to it a little bit quicker?
Yeah, how much of a key role does that play, Megan, going through, obviously growing, going through puberty and getting stronger? Because, you know, when I think about the events in men's gymnastics or women's gymnastics that rely more heavily on strength and power, I'm straight away thinking about floor, vault, rings. Does that play a key role? How much of an influence did that have on your own career, you know, going through that puberty and maybe getting a bit stronger and being able to handle the load of some of these tumbles? Like you guys, you know, when an artistic gymnast does a double straight, I'm going to say relatively, for people who aren't gymnastics, relatively easy to control that landing. You guys are doing double straight so high and you're going back into another whip. The force coming down on your body there, particularly your legs and your back, is massive. And so if you're a young tumbler, I imagine that you have to navigate that process very carefully so that you're not effectively burnt out and injured by the time you do get to 16, 17, 18.
Yeah, I think that's the case. And you have to be very careful when you do grow, because that's when injuries do happen, because we hit the floor so hard. I suppose once you stop growing, you're able to run a bit quicker. You're able to put that power into the floor. Like if you're taller or slightly more built, you're able to push down more, which means the track is going to give you back a lot more. I suppose when you're little, there's only so much you can hit into the floor. So with the bigger skills and stuff like that, as you grow, I mean, I know some coaches like wait for certain things to happen before they'll allow a child to do a double somersault in the middle, just so that they don't get any like feet or back problems and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just, you have to be, I guess, physically strong. But I suppose in all aspects of gymnastics, you have to be physically strong because of what you're doing, and then just go from there.
Does strength and conditioning play a role now, Megan? And maybe it didn't in the past, and maybe through traditional conditioning, that's how gymnasts and tumblers would be prepared to take that load. Now, is their strength and conditioning evolved? Do you have tumblers going to the gym and lifting weights and doing that to go alongside their tumbling? Or is it still very much just tumbling-based conditioning specific?
I guess we still do gymnastics-based conditioning. For general, I know that like myself, I do strength and conditioning as well. I think it's starting to play more aspect in sport in general, strength and conditioning, and having people look at different areas where you could benefit from. I think that would be missed just in general gymnastics conditioning. I suppose, like for example, for me, I can leg lift, I can do everything like that, but I find it really hard to hold a shape because I like use my strengths of my body to get me through the motions rather than being able to stay still and hold a shape. That makes it really difficult for me. So I think it's that everybody's different, and a strength coach they identify that problem and they help you through another way. So
yeah, it's really interesting, right? Like, I think sports science and strength and conditioning is seeping into more sports. I've seen the tumbling that I'm seeing now when I see videos online is outrageous. Some of the stuff that I'm seeing, it's just absolutely crazy. So I can only imagine that's going to continue to develop over time. And, yourself might be benefiting from having that strength and conditioning coach now, but that's only going to progress so that the younger athletes coming through are getting that from an earlier age. What was it like, Megan, when you first started going to Lilleshall and training with those gymnasts like Lucy that you will have looked up to and tumbling with them? And the reason I ask that is that when you're in that big gym in Lilleshall, tumbling makes so much noise when you run down that track and you're going so fast. It's like almost impossible as a gymnast in that gym not to turn around and watch. And it's quite a lonely place to be because all of the other tumblers are stood around that track watching you. And I imagine as a young girl going into that environment, that can be quite intimidating. What was it like when you first started training with all of those tumblers that you looked up to?
I think I was just so excited to be there. I think that was for me, it was just I just wanted to make it to senior, I guess. So just being in that environment, being at Lilleshall and being around great athletes, not only tumblers, it was just it was so exciting. I wasn't really afraid to go to Lilleshall. It was a bit of a scary place and things are definitely different now, but I was never afraid to do it. I was always just wanting to go there because it was exciting, I guess.
Yeah, I used to love watching the tumblers in between my goes whether I was on pommel horse or high bar, and whoever it may be, whether it was Christoph or when I was a young kid, the likes of Damien Walters, and some of the tumbling that I would see them do is just absolutely amazing. And I would always, my coach was good friends with a Russian tumbling coach, and we'd always pick his brain for advice because in other countries, particularly in Russia, for the artistic, they actually have the tumbling coaches teach the tumbling element, which made so much sense to me. I was like, these guys have like mastered the art of tumbling, right? Why are we not like using them and cross-pollinating? But I always used to think it's quite an intimidating piece of apparatus because it's right, you're using the whole of the gym. It's so loud when you guys hit that track. Everybody turns around and watches, particularly if you're struggling with maybe a mental block or struggling with a tumble at that time, it must be quite a scary place in those moments where you're finding it difficult or you're getting your run wrong, which a lot of tumblers do, and you're panicking. Did you ever have any of those moments as a young gymnast?
Not as a young, I guess as you get older, it becomes a little bit more intimidating because the expectations there.
Okay.
When we have like a control competition or a trial, I still do get stressed over one of my skills. And I remember coming back from an injury and doing it for the first time under that pressure. It just gets you. I think that's definitely the hard thing. And you always want to do well when you go to little, especially us. We're not there very often, so you always want to do quite well and show people what you've been doing in the gym. And if you're having a bad weekend, it does knock your confidence. So I think that's definitely one of the tougher bits, but because it sometimes doesn't show what you've been working on in the gym, and that is frustrating. But I think that's the only downside sometimes.
Yeah, I think tumbling's almost like the 100 meters of gymnastics, right? You know, you're talking artistic, you have effectively in men's artistic, you've got 6 opportunities to compete a routine. Women's, you've got 4. Tumbling, it's over in like a split second. Like if you make a mistake, that's it, it's done. That's a lot of pressure on just a very short amount of time. It must be very difficult in your head not to overthink that and overcomplicate it. What was it like, Megan, when you first started transitioning to being a senior tumbler and you go from competing on the junior scene internationally to the senior ranks? Was there a difference in the level? Did you notice anything in terms of what that pressure was like?
I moved gyms in like my last junior year into senior, and things started clicking really quickly for me. And I started just getting these big routines with not much stress. They just came and everything just pieced together quite well. And my first year senior, my first international was Europeans, and I did really well there. Like I came second individually, like so unexpected as a first year senior. And it started all like clicking together. And then I just had a bad day in the gym with twisting, and it went downhill from there for me after that, during that first year. So.
And what was that, Megan? Can you remember that moment at which that first went wrong potentially, and you had an issue twisting? You know, the more and more I speak to athletes, it sounds like almost 9 out of 10 gymnasts have had an issue with twisting. I've got them myself. Can you remember a specific moment? Was there anything happening in your life at that time? Do you think it was just down to one of these freaky things, or the fact there'd been a lot of change and you changed gyms?
I guess like for me, like I remember it happening. I went to do a full straight, and I opened out halfway through. And I thought, oh, maybe it's just one of those things, and you try and dust it off, but then it just kept happening. And then I didn't want to do them on the trampoline. I didn't want to do them on the fast track, and it just got progressively worse. And then I was just like, I actually don't know how to twist. Like I actually have no idea. And I remember it was just like months of it, like May, June, July, August. We had British in September, which was a world trial. And I was just like, I can't. Like, I don't know why I can't, but I can't. And I would go in the gym and I would just literally run and do nothing. I would just run to where I would do a round off and then just stop. And I did it for months. And no one could figure out why, because it came out of nowhere. And I could do the skill quite easily. And it basically became a thing that unless I had spotted, like could see what I was doing, I wasn't going to do anything. So I remember the day before the British, like we broke it down even more. And because I could do it on the end, but I couldn't do it in the top. And it figured out that if I could see the line on the track, then I would go, and it all just started clicking back together. But was definitely a frustrating time, and it's still a skill that I don't do to this day. I can do it, but sometimes I can't. And it has had an effect on my career, I guess, that I haven't done it. But I've just found ways to go around it, I guess.
Yeah, we had an athlete on recently, and we spoke about this. And I said, what would your advice be for an athlete that has a mental block? And would that be different for someone that is maybe at the start of their career and then at the end of their career? Because you've got to pick your battles, right? Like, you could spend all this mental energy trying to figure out this twisting problem that you've got, but the reality is you've maybe only got a couple of years left to compete. And in the process of trying to figure this out, you might end up wasting that time that you've got. But potentially if you're 15, 16, 17, it's worth putting the time in to try and figure it out. What has your experience been of that, Megan? And what would your advice be for those two athletes? One that's maybe still very young but struggling with a mental block, and someone that's maybe a bit more experienced, has a wiser head on their shoulder, and is maybe looking at the last chapter of their career.
I think you can get skills back. They don't ever disappear. And I think it is just obviously in your head. It's like a freeze aspect. I would say, like, for me, we left it alone, and I came back to it in 2022, and I did get it back, and couldn't compete at a competition for an injury purpose. So I had time off, and then it happened again. It's always going to be there. It's not that I can't physically do the skill, because I can do the skill. I'll do it every now and again, but it's when the pressure of the situation arises, it makes me stressed, and when I get stressed, I don't know what I'm doing. So we just left it alone, and we used my strengths to push my difficulty and my routines. And it's luckily for me, like, I've been able to get away with not doing it. But I suppose when you have a young athlete, you want to deal with it there and then. I did have problems with twisting growing up. I had the problem where you twist in every somersault, and then I had the problem of that I couldn't twist too. But when you're younger, you're a bit more accepting to break it down before the problem becomes a big thing. And you don't think so much, I guess, when you're younger. So my coaches just took me back to technique, like lift your arms, grab your legs in a tuck back, like something so simple. And it helped, and I was able to do it again. But just this time, as I got older, I wasn't lucky enough that that's the case, because I just think a little bit too much, I guess, nowadays. And yeah, it's definitely different when you're older. So definitely try and tackle it, I guess, when you're younger.
Do you have any ideas, Megan, of what it might be? Obviously, it's very commonplace in tumbling. We had Lucy Colbeck on the podcast previously last year, and we've also had Bryony Page, trampolinist, same, has a twisting problem. Is there anything that you will have seen hundreds, if not thousands, of tumblers, many of which have had these issues? When you sit here now as someone that's a more experienced athlete, is there anything you think you do have a theory to pinpoint maybe what it is that causes these mental blocks?
I actually don't know. We figured out that I don't understand how to do a full twist, like, in my head. So I can't picture tumbling. People tell you to visualize. I can't picture anything. So that doesn't work for me. But I guess when I was little, when I learned full twist, I could just do it. So there was never the aspect of understanding. I just did it. So as I got older, now I don't know how to do it. Like, even sometimes, like, if you're just doing a standing full, I won't do it. I don't know why. I just won't do it. I'll always do it into the pit. I guess it's like, it must be an aspect in my head about hurting myself. But I've never got hurt doing the skill, so that didn't really make sense. I think I just scared myself more than anything.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. I remember there being a few times when I was growing up where I'd just stand there and be like, how on earth am I doing this? Like, I've got no idea how I'm doing this. Like, how is my brain telling my body to do this thing? It makes no sense. Luckily, I was able to, like, snap out of that thinking pretty quickly. But by the time I was 14, 15, I was starting to have real issues with doing somersaults without twisting. I just go to drop my shoulder all the time. So I completely relate to all of those experiences that you had. And I'd agree. I'd say that for young athletes, it's worth trying to figure it out and back engineer where it went wrong, and not being afraid to take a few steps backwards to then go forwards, because the anxiety it gives you, like in pressured situations, and you're right, that's where it goes wrong. It's when you feel nervous and under pressure. And I'm similar. Like, I could go on the high bar and do a double straight over the pit, but you ask me to do it on hard, and all of a sudden my heart starts going, and I can feel the anxiety coming in, and it's just like this voice in my head that tells me to just twist and drop my shoulder. It's really hard to like shut that off. So definitely try and figure that out as a younger athlete, for sure.
Yes.
Just tell me then, you start having these issues, Megan, but you kind of figure it out and work on your strengths. Just tell me about the lead up to winning that world title in 2021, because that's a massive moment, right? Like, I grew up when Samantha Palmer, I think, won the first ever world title, or European title.
So she was a European, and she did the World Cup final, I think. So it's what she won. I guess there's not many people in Great Britain have won the World Championships. So
were you the first, Megan?
No, so my coach Kath was the first.
Okay.
And then it was Christoph, then Rachel Lepch.
Okay.
Then me, and there's been one since. So only 5 of us, I guess. It's not very many.
Yeah.
I didn't really expect to win in 2021 because it was just after COVID.
Okay.
But I had figured out how to do a skill that was worth the same tariff as a full tuck. Was a full and straight half. So I would understand my brain how to do a half. So it just made sense for me to learn that. And I guess it was one of those COVID times, and we were lucky enough and fortunate enough that the national program, like, it allowed us to train in the gym, but it was lonely, and it was just nice to be out there competing. I think it was our first international back, and it was just, I guess it was my day. I had the right tariff, and I've always had quite good execution, I guess, like, naturally. I guess it just worked out on my favour. It was definitely a different World Championships, but I would definitely say I do more now than I did when I won back then, but just because the level is rising, I guess.
Yeah. How much does the rhythm of a tumble play a role, Megan? The reason I say that is, like, one thing that I used to enjoy was hearing the tumblers go. Like, I'd listen for the rhythm and I'd go, okay, whip, whip, double straight, whip. I could hear it happening. And that rhythm aspect, I imagine, is quite important. And I would imagine that in a competition setting, when you've got adrenaline, it could be quite easy to overstride your run, right? And then all of a sudden, every skill is slightly longer than it needs to be. How difficult is it, and how important is it to keep that same rhythm every time? Does that play a key role?
I think it's always unpredictable in tumbling, I guess, with anything, but because you can jump too high, or you can not jump high enough and stuff like that, especially with doing transitions. It's what happened to me at the World Championships this year. Is I actually had a great warm-up. It was a new track we had, so it was a bit of like getting used to, and I'm petrified of doing a full and straight in the middle, but I do compete it. So it's one of those things that I try and give it everything, and I jump too high is what happened to me. And it kills your jump very quickly. It can go wrong very quickly, tumbling, I think. But you train so many times that you hope you do it the same, and you still try to do it the same, but adrenaline and the equipment, everything can change those factors very quickly for you. So I guess you try and just control that power, but as well as you want to then be able to push out hard enough to have enough speed at the end for the big end skill. So it's a bit of both.
How quickly do you know, Megan, in a tumble? Like, is it literally from the round off? Can you tell whether you're in the right area for it to go well? And how much leeway is there in the air when you take off and you do a full in straight or you do a double straight in the middle? How much room is there for error in that air to readjust and still make it work?
I think you feel when something goes a bit wrong. Like, because I learned things a bit more visual now. I know if I've ran too far, and I actually draw a chalk line on the track. I like to see it before I take off. I try and see both somersaults of the skill to see when to come in, but yeah, it's like a split second decision. Like, as soon as you exit, you know if it's good, you know if it's bad. You have to adjust slightly or change the end skill is what we have to do. You just have to take it as it comes. You can obviously try and do it exactly the same way that you do it in the gym, but it's gymnastics and it doesn't always work like that.
And does it make a big difference, Megan, what the track is on in terms of the surface? Because like in artistic, when you're on the podium and it's bound, it really changes like the tension on the high bar. Does it make a big difference whether the track's on the concrete, whether it's on a podium? Does that really impact the bounce that you get?
I think when the track's on wood, the track bounces slightly, but it also depends on the style of the track.
Okay.
We've had a consistency of a track for a long time, of a brand of track. It's Cocoon, but it's banned at the moment. You can't get them, very hard to get. We're on to Gym Nova now. So Gym Nova used to own Cocoon because they couldn't get it anymore. We're on to a new style of track, and it's for everybody this year. It was very hard to get used to, but at the World Championships in the warm-up gym, it was on wood. When we came out to the front, it was on like concrete carpet. So the two tracks felt different. And obviously you only get like a 1 or 2 touch warm up. So it's quite hard to adjust sometimes.
Yeah. I imagine that must play a role. And typically, Megan, are you just using that one track the whole time? Are there any situations where you're going into a back gym and using a different track? And is that difficult to navigate? Or is it normally just always that track that you get to train on?
We have training track, warm-up track, competition track. They're all the same brand.
Okay.
But I suppose it's the same for you guys.
Yeah.
That when you go on that equipment, it doesn't feel the same.
Yeah.
Nothing is exactly the same. So, yeah, the two tracks definitely felt really different. And it was an adjustment for a lot of people. And, yeah, there was a lot of people that made errors, like myself, unexpected errors. And it was just one of those things, I guess.
What was it like going into competitions following becoming a world champion, Megan? Did it feel different? Was there that pressure? Because, you know, all of a sudden everybody's looking at you as being the person to beat. And how did you handle that? I
obviously won the world championships, and then my coach left the gym I was at.
Okay.
So I moved gyms. And I was settled. I was doing quite well there. It was the national coaches, it's their gym, and I was happy there. Things were going fine. I had done some upgrades, but I just kept saying to my coach, Kath, everybody's waiting to see me fail. I felt like everybody was waiting to see me fail, and I just couldn't get it out of my head that I was going to fail. And we got to the first competition, like domestically with audience, away from a trial like perspective, but it was I think it was like a World Games trial. It was a European trial. It was and a world trial. Like it mattered. And I just got in my head, and I went out and went to jump a full in straight, and just completely buckled and bent my legs on the way out, and I did a flick on my head, and I just stopped in the middle of the track. And it was me that done that to myself, because I had that in my head that everybody was waiting to see me fail. But maybe it needed to happen, because it then settled that problem for me. And I went on, and the rest of 2022 was good, I guess. I went to Europeans and I came second, so that was fine. But yeah, it got to me at first.
Yeah. All those medals that, you know, I spoke about there in the introduction, like Megan, that's an incredible amount of success in a relatively short space of time, in 5 or 6 years. What have you learned about being able to compete at that highest level and maybe competing against some of the best tumblers in the world? What's the difference between the tumblers that are able to consistently perform under that pressure? Because like we spoke about, it is a split second. It's so fast and it can go so wrong so easily. What's the difference, do you think, having been around that level and competed in it yourself, between like the good tumblers and then the great tumblers that are the ones that can just produce results after results consistently?
I don't know. I don't know why, like, I have been as successful as I have. Because obviously everybody works just as hard. I have an array of skills, which I'm quite lucky to have. And I'm quite good at making changes very quickly. I don't just go for something. I will always make a smart decision to try and land my feet. And I guess, like, my coaches have always been like the people that have made the plans. So it's them that I guess I have to thank for everything. But especially now, like, I've had so much success, and I never ever went into a competition wanting to win, except from in 2024. I had never won a senior British. I kept coming like second or doing like a silly mistake, and I was like desperate to win it, because I guess like the British is like a big thing in our country, and get the trophy and stuff like that. And I was just like, I keep doing well in all these other competitions. I just couldn't at the British. And then I ended up winning a senior title there. So I've just had that in my head that, yeah, I don't go in to win, but I go in to perform and show everybody like how hard I've worked, I guess. That's all I ever want to do, is like show the work I've put in the gym, because I have always worked very hard, and that's my thing. It's just like, I always work hard because I don't want to have any regrets. It's never been results-based for me. I've just been very lucky to have all the results come along with it, I guess.
What does the career of a professional tumbler look like now, Megan? You know, the sport is obviously in a different place to where it was probably 10, 15, 20 years ago. And you would say that, you know, it's not where maybe artistic is at, or trampolining, because of the fact that it's an Olympic sport, right? And they have a lot of funding. But is it possible now to have a professional career as a tumbler? And what does that look like? Are you in a position where you have sponsors, you get funding, and that can support your professional career as a tumbler? Do you have to look outside the box and do other things as well? What's life like for a professional tumbler right now in 2025?
I still don't think you can do it as a job.
Okay.
In our country, you can't do it as a job, but working with brands has been more available to us. Obviously, I'm an ambassador for Kukri and Quattro, so there's perks that come with that, and I get things like leotards and everything for free like that, which is great for our sport. We have access now to like the TAS program.
Okay.
So I guess British Gymnastics put us forward for it and stuff like that. We don't get paid to do what we do, so I still work a full-time job as well as training. So it can get quite a lot, but you never know what could happen. You never know what, like, for example, UK sport are going to do in the future with sport in our country. I guess there's a lot of sports that are non-Olympic and are in the same position, or are Olympic but still in the same position. But yeah, I get quite a lot from this, I guess, the success I've had. But it will just be a time-telling thing, I guess.
I think it's a great reminder for people and athletes that come from the world of artistic gymnastics that there are people that are training full-time, are fully committed, some of the best athletes in the world, and, you know, the opportunities that they have are just not available for them at the moment. That's where the sport's at, right? But it must give you some hope, Megan, seeing sports like surfing, BMX, skateboarding becoming Olympic sports, and there being that opportunity for new Olympic sports being introduced. Is there still that hope that maybe one day tumbling might be added to the Olympic program alongside trampolining?
I think it would be great if it was. I think it would allow for the excitement of what the three disciplines are together. And then you can have those things like team finals, which trampoline don't get right now. And it brings a bit more excitement to it. I guess tumbling is exciting to watch, but you like every great tumbler I've spoken to, like Christoph or Mike or whoever, we all just love doing our sport because we love the sport. It's not money driven. So we absolutely love our sport, and I hope that one day the world gets to see our sport. That's why I'd like it to be Olympic, not for, I guess, money reasons, for people to like see what we do. Because when people do see it, like when we had the World Championships at home and the BBC covered it, like everybody was like amazed at what we do. It's just people don't know.
Yeah.
People don't know our sport because it's just not out there, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I'm forever talking about gymnastics as a sport as a whole needing to do a better job of selling itself. And you guys probably feel that the most. But you're right, whenever it's on TV, people are just absolutely amazed by it, right? Like, it's unbelievable. And I'm the same. I still have that awe of a kid of just seeing. There was like an old myth at my gym in Nottingham that at the end of the track, there's like a lower roof. And it was that there was a tumbler at the time. I can't remember his name. I feel really bad now for not remembering his name. But there was a myth that he could jump so high he could hit that roof. I used to think, what, that's so high. It's such an they used to have a harness on the track at my gym as well, and I'd watched the tumblers that would train in Nottingham. They would train in this harness, and it just looked like the coolest thing ever. You know, growing up, my favorite thing to do was to just feel like I was flying, so tumbling was like my favorite thing in the world. And fast track for me is like would be my perfect sport. If that was a sport, that's what I would have done. When I was growing up, I watched Alegria, and the fast track act on that was like, yeah, that just set me on fire. I was like, one day when I retire, I'm going to go to Cirque du Soleil and I'm going to do the Alegria like fast track act, which I know Lucy Colbeck went on to do, which is really, really cool. Have you got maybe ideas of what you would do after tumbling? Megan, have you thought about that yet, or are you just still very much focused on your career at the moment? And what is it that you do full time as your job, Megan?
I coach gymnastics.
Okay, brilliant.
I guess it's one of those things that if it's in quite well and when I need time off, it works because they understand what we do. I guess for me also that my only goal in tumbling was to go to the World Games, was to compete at World Games. There was no like other goal that I wanted to do. That was it. I guess it's like our version of the Olympics. Okay. And I just wanted to go there and compete. And like Lucy had been, and you always see like the one, because it's only one person that gets to go, they get to go represent Great Britain. And I was just like, that's what I want to do. Like it wasn't about the result, it was just about like going to compete at the World Games, and that's been my only goal. So I feel like I've had everything I want and more, but I still love the sport, which is why I haven't walked away yet. And there's still like goals that I wanted to achieve of my actual tumbling. So I guess that's why I'm still going, and I haven't really thought about anything else. But
can you tell me about that run, Megan, at the World Games? Obviously, when you win the gold medal, what can you remember about that performance? Can you remember? You know, are you very much, you know, autopilot mode? Are you in the zone when you're getting ready to do a run? And what can you tell me about that run itself and what you felt as you were going through it?
I think it was just like at the World Games, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go. Like even the week before, it became quite stressful because in 2022 at the World Games, I had an injury and it pulled me out of the competition. So like I lost my dream of competing. So I think my coach, like I had my personal coach there with us, and she was like, we're just going to take this one day at a time. You're going to get through training. And once you've got through training, you've got past the stage you did last time. So like even in the prelims, she was like, we're just going to go, going to do your thing. And whatever happens, happens. Like at World Games, it was like a super final. So that only 4 people made the final. So I made the final, and like I felt good. I actually felt good. The track was different and it was quite hard, but I actually felt really good. Going into the final, I felt relaxed. I was a bit stressed, but I was relaxed. And I knew I had a chance of like fighting for a medal. When there's only 4 of you, you have that chance. I just knew I had to land on my feet for that first round, and I was luckily like it got divided into 2 finals. So like if you won your round, you went into a gold medal final, and if you didn't win, you went into a bronze medal final. And I got into this gold medal final. So by the time it was my turn to do that second routine, whether it went completely wrong or not, I still had a silver medal. So I guess it was just like, enjoy it, try and remember the moment, do the run, and you deserve to be here. And I think it's one of the better runs I've ever done in my life. But yeah, I guess it all just came together for me. But for me, it was like, it wasn't about winning. Like, that was amazing and it broke history for Great Britain. But it was, for me, it closed that door from all that hurt from it would have been 4 years, but because of COVID, 3 years before, it closed that door for me. So I finally could let go of all that, like, heartache, I guess.
Yeah, what an amazing moment. And when you're performing those skills, Megan, like, what are you thinking about technically? Are you thinking technically? Are you thinking more about the feeling and the flow? Or are there certain points within the skills, those big skills there in the middle and then right at the end, where you're, okay, if I hit this moment, I know it's going right, this is what I have to do to... And are you very process-driven rather than thinking of the landing right at the end?
Yeah, it was more just like, land on your feet. Just try and land on your feet. I had the full in straight to get through. And because I'd been stressed about World Games, that brought stress upon that skill. And the Australian coach that was out there, because we normally have Mike out with us and he normally catches my full in straight in the middle in training. I was like, well, who's going to do that? Like, I was really stressed, but the Australian coach actually really helped us. He caught all my full ins in the middle and took that stress away from me, and he was really helpful. So really appreciate him for that. But I just stood at the top of the track and I was like, if there's one time that you're going to do this skill, it's today. You're going to do it today. And I just, once I got past that, I was just like, just land your feet. So, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And then you go into the World Championships. Just tell me about that experience, Megan. Obviously, you go in there as the World Games gold medalist. I'm sure you had high expectations of yourself, and you still did really well. Look, coming away from a major championships with 2 medals, but quite clearly you were a little bit disappointed with yourself individually. Just tell me about that experience and maybe what you learned from that. I know we're only a few weeks post that, but what you took away from that championships.
Yeah, I was very disappointed in myself. I had wanted to perform a new routine.
Okay.
And I had worked really hard, and it was a medal contending routine. But just being out there, I guess we had a whole new team, and you always think about team first. So I was just trying to support the girls and like reassure them they could do it. And even when they were nervous that they could do it, obviously in tumbling, team final isn't score based, it's point based on mini rounds. So it's difficult to understand, but more easier to understand, I guess, for audience purposes.
Okay.
So it's like, you have to be strategic, but you don't know who you're going to have in your round. So it was getting them through that. And I guess for them, like, that was like helping them complete a dream as well. Actually completed that silver medal for the team, actually completed my World Championships. Like, I had like a few golds and a bronze, and actually like complete the whole set for me, which was quite exciting. And then it was individual, and I warmed up amazing. I had the best warm up of my life. I felt good. I just made a mistake. Like, it wasn't a huge mistake and it wasn't an awful score, but it was marginal enough that it knocked me out of that second final. And I was sad because I wanted to show the world how hard I'd been working on that routine and that I was capable of doing more. And that's why I was so upset about it, because I felt like I'd worked really hard and I let myself down. Not because of the result. It was nothing to do with being 7th in the world is still amazing. But I knew that I was capable to be better. And I think that's what was destroying for me. But then I also got the chance to win the bronze medal with the all-around system, where they have trampoline, tumbling, DMT all compete together. And I got to be on the floor with Christoph at his last competition. So I guess it was a really good experience, the World Championships. It just, for me individually, it could have gone better, but
yeah,
try again.
Yeah, exactly. And just what an amazing thing, yeah, to be part of that. And Christoph obviously retired after that internationally from competing, and what an incredible career he's had, and certainly someone that I watched. And I'm sure most of the gymnastics world watched online when social media started really taking off, and you would see him do triple straights and stuff. That guy was just absolutely out of this world. And I think unique in the way he looked. You spoke about that before, right? Like, he's not built like a traditional tumbler. He's quite skinny and a little bit taller, but it made it aesthetically so beautiful to watch when he tumbled. So yeah, cool that you managed to get that whole set and that you can have that outlook. And if I'm honest, you know, I'm somebody that sits and chats to loads of athletes. I really liked just your authentic like reaction to how you felt. Sometimes you're told to be a certain way and answer in a certain way and do, and you just got that like real emotion. And I really liked seeing that as somebody that loves listening to athletes' interviews and seeing that just honest response. So yeah, I'm sure you'll be back, Megan. And obviously you have that injury and you were supposed to do the face-off event, which I hadn't heard much about up until probably the last 12 months and the event when it took place last year. And when I was seeing some of the tumbles, and I actually spent a bit of time with a guy called Joe Fishburne who had won the Gladiators, and he was showing me videos of this event in the summer, and I was like, oh my God, this is actually amazing. And he was explaining just how big team gym and tumbling is in Scandinavia, and the fact that they get like 10,000 people watching this event. And I know you were going to be there, Megan. Is that the way in which you feel like showcasing the sport is the best way for tumbling to go? Because, you know, I look at that event and I'm like, I think artistic needs something like that too. Like, so exciting, just a different type of spectacle. Firstly, I guess, yeah, what do you think to events like Face Off? I'm sure you're disappointed that you couldn't compete in it. And do you think it's a good thing for the sport as a whole?
I've been to watch Face Off a couple of times. They've asked me to do it for a few years, and I was really disappointed that, I agreed to do it finally, and then, it didn't go my way. But when you go and, like, watch Face Off, like, watching it on video is cool, but when you go and watch Face Off, it's so exciting. I would say it's like X Games of gymnastics. Like, it's exciting. It's not boring. The crew aspect in particular, like the teams, is incredible. Like, it's crazy. They're throwing some crazy skills. And I think, like, the way they, like, put it out there, like, with all the fire and stuff like that, it makes it so exciting. I think it's great for our sport. I guess in Denmark and Scandinavian countries, they actually learn team gym and tumbling within their schools as part of their curriculum.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of the boarding schools have, like, the gyms in them. So that's how they learn. But, yeah, it's just such a cool event. And I think, it does put an aspect to our sport. And they are promoting safety and stuff like that. They're promoting that you have to land the skill. Like, I know people are chucking big skills, but they're saying, like, the scores will be dropped if you don't succeed in what you do. But, yeah, it is exciting, and I hope it reaches a further audience than currently it has. Hopefully it will. It brings a bit more excitement to our sport, I guess. I guess it is kind of our sport, but to an extreme level.
Yeah, it's cool, man. It's really exciting. Straight away I was like, I wonder if there's anybody like artistic that could maybe get involved and it'd be brave enough. But some of the stuff that, like, you guys are doing in those competitions is wild. I'm like, you would never catch me doing that. It's mental.
Yeah, I guess, like, for example, like, you could do trumpet and you can tumble, but the way the boys are pushing, probably not so much anymore. Because, like, people used to just do one skill onto the DMT, and now they're, like, tumbling into it. So
it's almost becoming its own sport, right? It's like it's almost becoming its own thing. And maybe the way is you bring, like, some kind of an artistic event in. It's a separate thing, and you get people to just do crazy high bar stuff and something like that, you know, that real exciting event. But it's really cool for the sport, and hopefully we'll get the chance to do it in the future. Megan, what are your hopes as we go into 2026? Obviously you're going to be recovering from this surgery, but what are your plans as you move forward into next year and beyond, Megan?
Well, my goal was Europeans, and that's in April, so I think that's out of the window now for me. I guess it's like, I think in my head now, I'm not going to step back onto the competition floor until I'm at the level that I want to be at. I might be able to go to the World Championships in November, and I might be able to help a team, but would I be able to perform in the way I want to? I don't know. It just obviously depends. And it obviously depends on the policy of the World Trials, whether I can be medically exempt to give me a longer time, or just have that understanding. But I've had some calls for British Gymnastics, and they're being very supportive of me and being part of the national program and stuff like that. So I guess it's taking it one day at a time, but I don't also want to end my career on a mistake like that. I am getting older in age, I guess. I think that's one thing that's in my head. It's like, I'm 25 years old, like I turn 26 next year. I've had a lot, but I think it's just like, you could end on a high, but I'm just taking it one day at a time, I guess, and hopefully not finishing on a skill I've been doing since I was 10. So
yeah, I mean, I think being able to finish on your own terms is definitely the way to do it. I was lucky enough to have that opportunity, but I remember being 25 and thinking the same thing, Megan, and now I'm 32. I wish I could go and grab that 25-year-old and be like, you're so young. Even when I retired at 28, now I'm thinking, why did I retire? I could have carried on. So, you've got plenty of gymnastics left in you. All the best for the recovery. I'm sure you're going to have a great support team around you, and you'll be back tumbling before you know it. It's just difficult in those early stages because you're just tearing your hair out. But yeah, spend that time trying to enjoy doing other things that you don't normally have the time to do. But thank you so much, Megan, for giving us your time. I hope it all goes well tomorrow. Where can people follow your journey, Megan? Where's the best place to follow you?
I guess Instagram, and I'm trying to build my TikTok, so it's just Megan Kealy on both.
Amazing. Megan, thank you so much, and congratulations for everything you've achieved throughout your career. I know that the year's obviously not ended in the way that you wanted to, but you've had an incredible year, and when you look at the catalogue of your career, I mean, most athletes, most gymnasts dream of being able to achieve that much. So well done, and all the best, and have a nice Christmas.
Andrew, thank you.